Commander Jake Harrison stared out the window of his ship into the endless black of space. The stars looked different here, so far from Earth. His ship, the Terra's Pride, had been traveling for 3 months to reach this meeting point. This was humanity's first real contact with aliens, and Jake felt the weight of that responsibility on his shoulders. "Sir, we're getting a signal," said Captain Ryan Bell from his seat at the communications panel. Ryan had been Jake's friend since their days at the Space Academy. Now they were both about to make history. "Put it on the main screen," Jake ordered. The screen flickered to life, showing something Jake had never seen before. The alien was tall and thin, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow softly. Its eyes were large and silver, and when it spoke, its voice was like music. "Greetings, humans of Earth. I am High Counselor Vexithara of the Galactic Council. We have been watching your species for some time." Jake stepped forward. "This is Commander Jake Harrison of the United Earth Space Force. We're honored to meet you." The alien's expression didn't change much, but Jake could sense something cold in its manner. "The honor is not necessary, Commander. We are here to discuss your future." Back on Earth, Admiral Lisa Carter sat in the command center deep beneath the Pentagon. She watched the conversation through the live feed from Jake's ship. Next to her, President Alex Morgan leaned forward in his chair, his face tense. "I don't like the tone of this," Alex whispered to Lisa. "Neither do I," she replied, keeping her voice low. On the screen, the alien continued speaking. "Your species has achieved faster-than-light travel. This means you are now capable of reaching other worlds, other civilizations. The Galactic Council exists to maintain peace and order among all species in our galaxy." Jake nodded. "We want peace, too. That's why we're here." "Peace, yes," the alien said. "But peace requires certain adjustments from new species like yours. We have studied your history, Commander Harrison. Your species is violent. You wage war constantly. You have weapons that could destroy entire planets. This cannot be allowed to continue." Admiral Carter's hands clenched into fists. On the screen, Jake's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice calm. "Every species has conflict in its past. We've learned from our mistakes." The alien's silver eyes seemed to grow brighter. "Have you? Our records show over 5,000 wars in your recorded history. You have used nuclear weapons against your own kind. You have poisoned your own world. You continue to fight even now." President Morgan stood up. "Cut the transmission," he said quietly to the technician. "No," Admiral Carter said. "Let's hear what they want." The alien was still talking. "The Galactic Council has decided to offer your species a choice. You will surrender all military technology to us. You will dismantle your weapons and your warships. In return, we will protect you. We will give you advanced technology. We will ensure peace for your people." Jake felt his heart racing. "And if we refuse?" "Then we will be forced to intervene for the safety of all galactic civilizations. You have 30 of your Earth days to decide." The transmission ended abruptly. Jake stared at the empty screen for a long moment. Ryan stood up and walked over to him. "They want us to surrender everything," Ryan said. "I heard," Jake replied. Meanwhile, in another part of the galaxy, 12 different alien species were meeting in a massive space station. The Galactic Council chamber was enormous, with representatives from each member species sitting in a circle. The Korthak representative, a large creature covered in metal armor, spoke in a deep, rumbling voice. "The humans will resist. My analysis of their military history shows they always fight when cornered. Which is exactly why they must be controlled, said Vexthera. Every species we have encountered has eventually seen the wisdom of our protection. The humans will be no different. A floating, jellyfish-like creature pulsed with different colors as it spoke. Perhaps we should simply destroy them. They seem too dangerous to allow any freedom. No, Vexthera said firmly. The Council exists to preserve life, not destroy it. We will offer them the same choice we have offered all the others. Submit to our protection or face the consequences. The Korthak representative laughed, a sound like grinding metal. In 300 years of Council rule, only 2 species have ever chosen to fight us. Both were completely destroyed within days. The humans will be the same, Vexthera said, confidently. Back on Terra's Pride, Jake was in his private quarters, recording a message to send back to Earth. Admiral Carter, President Morgan, he began. I've never seen anything like these aliens. They speak about peace, but there's something threatening about them. They act like they own the galaxy, like we're just children who need to be controlled. He paused, thinking about the aliens' silver eyes. They've been watching us. They know about our wars, our weapons, everything, but they don't understand us. They think because we fight, we're dangerous. They don't see that we also protect what we love. Captain Ryan Bell entered the room. Jake, we're getting readings of massive ships heading toward our solar system. These aren't exploration vessels. These are warships. Jake stood up quickly. How many? Sensors show at least 50 large vessels, plus smaller escort ships. They're moving fast. Jake activated his communicator. Admiral Carter, this is Commander Harrison. The aliens aren't waiting for our answer. They're already sending a fleet toward Earth. On Earth, Admiral Carter looked at President Morgan. They never intended to give us a real choice, she said. Then we need to prepare for the worst, Alex replied. In the depths of space, the Galactic Council fleet moved toward Earth like a dark storm. Their ships were sleek and powerful, designed to intimidate and overwhelm. The Council had done this many times before. They would arrive, demonstrate their superior technology, and another species would join the galaxy under their protection. Admiral Korvex of the Korthak Empire commanded the fleet from his massive flagship. He had conquered 17 species for the Council. Humans would be number 18. But as the fleet moved through space toward the small blue planet, something was different this time. Hidden sensors throughout the solar system were already tracking their approach. Secret messages were being sent to hidden bases. And deep beneath the Earth's surface, people were preparing for war. The aliens offered peace. But they would soon learn that humanity had a different answer ready for them. The 30 days were just beginning, but the real countdown had already started. Earth would not go quietly into the night. If the aliens wanted humanity to surrender, they would have to fight for it. And humans, as their entire history showed, were very good at fighting. Colonel Danny Wright walked through the corridor 7 levels beneath the Pentagon. Most people didn't even know this level existed. The few who did called it Sub-Level 7, but Danny knew its real name, Project Blackout Command. The massive steel. Doors required 3 different security checks to open. Danny placed his hand on the scanner, looked into the retina reader, and spoke his password. The doors slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, 50 of Earth's best military minds were working at computer stations. Giant screens showed star maps, ship designs, and weapon specifications. This room had been operating in secret for 50 years, Ever since humans first started seriously thinking about life beyond Earth, Colonel Wright called Dr. Helen Brooks from across the room. She was the head of the Xeno Defense Research Division, though her official job title was much more boring. The Council fleet is still 3 weeks out. We have time to implement the final preparations. Danny nodded and walked to the central briefing area. A holographic display showed the solar system with red dots marking the approaching alien ships. But there were other symbols, too, blue ones that most people wouldn't recognize. General Paul Adams was already waiting at the briefing table. He was an old soldier who had fought in Earth's last major war 20 years ago. Now he was about to fight in something much bigger. "Gentlemen, ladies," Paul began as the team gathered around. "For 50 years we've been preparing for this day. Project Blackout wasn't just about building weapons. It was about understanding how to fight an enemy we'd never seen." Dr. Brooks activated another hologram. This one showed a sleek, dark ship, unlike anything in Earth's official fleet. "The aliens think they know our capabilities. They've been watching our public military for decades. What they don't know is that we've been watching them too." The ship in the hologram was beautiful and deadly. It had no official name, but the engineers called it a Ghost-class destroyer. Earth had been building them in secret for 20 years. "How many do we have?" asked Colonel Danny. 47 completed ships," replied Engineer Tony Kim, a young man who had spent his entire career working on projects that officially didn't exist. "Plus 15 more that will be ready within the week. They're all stationed in hidden bases throughout the asteroid belt." General Adams smiled grimly. "The aliens expect us to fight like they do. Big fleets, lots of noise, traditional tactics. But humans learned long ago that sometimes the best way to win is to not fight fair." Lieutenant Kate Davis was working at a computer station nearby. She was one of Earth's best hackers, though her official rank was in communications. "Sir, I've been monitoring alien transmissions for the past 6 months. They're not even trying to hide their communications from us." "What have you learned?" Danny asked. "They're arrogant," Kate replied. "They've done this exact same thing to 37 other species over the past few centuries. Same ultimatum, same fleet size, same tactics. They expect us to surrender after a brief show of resistance." Dr. Brooks brought up another display. "This is why we've been developing adaptive technology instead of just bigger guns. Look at this." The hologram showed a weapon that seemed to change shape as they watched. "This is a quantum phase torpedo. It analyzes enemy shields and adapts its frequency to pass right through them. The more the enemy tries to block it, the better it gets at penetrating their defenses." Tony Kim stepped forward. "All of our ships use adaptive AI systems. They learn during combat. Every shot fired at us makes our defenses stronger. Every attack we make teaches our weapons new ways to be more effective." General Adams nodded approvingly. "The aliens have had the same technology for thousands of years. It's very advanced, but it's also predictable. They've gotten comfortable always being the strongest force in any fight." "What about their numbers?" asked Danny. 50 ships is still 50 ships." "True," Paul replied, "but we're not planning to meet them in open battle. We're going to use every dirty trick humans have ever invented." Lieutenant Kate looked up from her computer. "I've been studying their previous conquests. The aliens always follow the same pattern. They arrive, demand surrender, then demonstrate their power by destroying a few military targets. After that, most species give up." "Most species aren't human," Dr. Brooks said with a slight smile. The briefing room's main screen changed to show Earth itself. But this wasn't the Earth that most people knew. Hidden symbols marked secret installations on the moon, in Earth's oceans, and buried deep underground. "We've weaponized the entire solar system," Tony explained. "The moon isn't just our natural satellite anymore. We've hollowed out sections and turned them into massive railgun platforms. They can fire projectiles at nearly the speed of light." General Adams activated another display. "Earth's defense grid isn't just satellites with laser weapons. We've been placing gravity manipulation devices at key points throughout the system. We can create artificial gravity wells that will trap enemy ships or tear them apart." Colonel Danny whistled softly. "How long have we been preparing for this?" "Since the 1950s, Dr. Brooks replied. "Every space program, every military advancement, every technological breakthrough has been building toward this moment. We knew that if aliens existed and found us, first contact might not be friendly." The room fell quiet for a moment as everyone absorbed this information. Finally, Lieutenant Kate spoke up. "There's something else. I've been intercepting alien communications about other species they've conquered. Many of these civilizations didn't want to surrender, they were forced to." "What do you mean?" Danny asked. "The aliens call it protection, but it's really slavery. The conquered species provide resources, technology, and labor to the Council. In exchange, they're allowed to exist under alien rule." General Adams's face hardened. "Then we're not just fighting for Earth. We're fighting for every species that's been enslaved by these aliens." Dr. Brooks activated one more hologram. This one showed a massive space station hidden in the outer solar system. "Project Sanctuary," she announced. "If Earth falls, we have backup plans. This station can support 50,000 humans indefinitely. We've also established secret colonies on 12 different worlds outside this system." "The aliens might conquer Earth," Tony said, "but they'll never conquer humanity." Colonel Danny looked around the room at all the dedicated people who had spent decades preparing for this moment. "What are our chances?" General Adams was quiet for a long moment. "Against any normal enemy, we'd have no chance at all. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Their ships are bigger and more powerful. They have 12 different species working together." He paused and looked directly at Danny. "But they have one critical weakness. They don't understand us. They've studied our history and seen our wars, but they think that makes us predictable. They believe that because we fight each other, we'll be easy to defeat." "And we won't be?" Danny asked. Paul Adams smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "Colonel, these aliens have been at peace for so long they've forgotten what real war looks like. They've been policing primitive species for centuries. They think they're coming to discipline unruly children." Dr. Brooks nodded. "They're about to learn that humans aren't children. We're something much more dangerous." Lieutenant Kate's computer beeped with an incoming message. She read it quickly and looked up. "The alien fleet just changed course. They're accelerating toward Earth. Estimated arrival time is now 18 days. "Then we'd better finish our preparations," General Adams said. "Send the activation codes to all hidden bases. It's time to wake up our sleeping giants." Colonel Danny felt a chill run down his spine. In 18 days, humanity would either win its freedom or face extinction. But looking around the room at 50 years of careful preparation, he felt something else too. Hope. The aliens were coming to offer humanity peace through surrender. They had no idea that Earth was about to answer with power they couldn't imagine. Ambassador Maria Santos stood at the podium in the United Nations building, her voice carrying to every corner of Earth through live broadcasts. Behind her, The flags of every nation on Earth created a colorful backdrop for what many believed would be humanity's surrender. "Citizens of Earth," Maria began, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "After careful consideration, the leaders of our world have decided to accept the Galactic Council's offer of protection." Around the world, people watched in silence. Some cried. Others felt relief. None of them knew that Maria's words were the opening move in the most dangerous game humanity had ever played. In space, Admiral Corvex of the Korthak Empire watched the broadcast from his flagship's bridge. The massive alien warrior's metal armor gleamed under the ship's lights as he turned to his officers. "As expected," Corvex rumbled in his deep voice. "Number 18 surrenders without a fight. Deploy the occupation fleet." The Galactic Council's ships moved into formation around Earth. 50 massive vessels, each one capable of destroying entire cities, took positions throughout the solar system. They had done this dance 37 times before with other species. It always ended the same way. But something was different this time. Though the aliens didn't notice it yet, Captain Steve Parker floated in the command center of what looked like a dead asteroid. The new Sparta station had been built inside a hollowed-out rock, making it invisible to most sensors. Steve and his crew had been waiting in this cold, dark place for 6 months, knowing this moment would come. "All systems are green," reported his weapons officer, Lieutenant Carol White. "The enemy fleet is exactly where our computers predicted they would be." Steve nodded and activated his communicator. "All hidden stations, this is New Sparta. Operation Ghost Dance is now active." Repeat, Ghost Dance is active. Throughout the solar system, similar messages were being sent. Hidden bases that had looked like space debris for years suddenly came alive. Weapon systems that had been dormant began powering up. The trap was finally ready to spring. Commander Beth Turner sat in the pilot's seat of the Ghost of Yorktown, a ship that officially didn't exist. Her vessel was currently disguised as a piece of broken satellite, drifting slowly through space just a few kilometers from the alien flagship. "Enemy shields are at full power," her tactical officer whispered. "But our quantum analysis shows a weak point in their rear deflector array." Beth smiled coldly. The aliens' shields were incredibly advanced, but they were also old technology that hadn't been updated in centuries. Human engineers had spent years finding ways to exploit exactly these kinds of weaknesses. "Prepare quantum torpedoes," Beth ordered. "Target their main reactor." On Earth, Admiral Lisa Carter watched the alien ships from the command center beneath the Pentagon. Next to her, President Alex Morgan looked tense but determined. "Are we really going to do this?" Alex asked quietly. "The aliens gave us a choice," Lisa replied. "Submit or fight. They just assumed we'd choose submission." High above them, Ambassador Maria was still speaking to the world. "Earth's military forces will be transferred to Galactic Council control within 72 hours. All weapons manufacturing will cease. Our people will be safe under alien protection." Every word was a lie, but the aliens believed it completely. Admiral Corvex was already making plans for the occupation. "Deploy ground forces to the major population centers," he ordered. "Standard pacification protocols. Any resistance will be met with appropriate force." The alien landing craft began descending toward Earth's atmosphere. Each one carried 100 Council soldiers and enough firepower to level several city blocks. They had used this same strategy dozens of times before. That's when everything went wrong. Captain Steve Parker's voice echoed across the hidden communication network. "All stations execute immediately." The new Sparta station suddenly dropped. its disguise. What had looked like a harmless asteroid revealed itself as a massive fortress bristling with weapons. Quantum torpedoes and gravity bombs launched toward the nearest alien ships before they could react. Commander Beth Turner's ship decloaked right behind the alien flagship. Her quantum torpedoes phased through the enemy shields as if they weren't even there, striking the massive ship's reactor core. The explosion was visible from Earth. Throughout the solar system, humanity's hidden weapons came online. The moon's surface opened to reveal massive railgun emplacements that fired streams of projectiles at near-light speed. Artificial gravity. Wells activated around alien ships, crushing them or tearing them apart. Major Frank Lopez commanded a hidden base built into an asteroid in the belt between Mars and Jupiter. His base alone launched over 200 missiles, each one using different technology to confuse enemy defenses. Target the supply ships first, Frank ordered his weapons teams. Cut off their support before they can adapt to our tactics. The alien fleet tried to respond, but they were completely unprepared for this kind of coordinated assault. Their sensors had detected no human military presence. Their intelligence said Earth had already surrendered. Now they were under attack from weapons they didn't understand, launched from bases they couldn't see. Admiral Korvex's flagship was dying around him. Emergency lights flashed red as his crew tried to contain the damage from Beth Turner's surprise. "Attack! How is this possible?" Korvex demanded. "They surrendered. Our sensors detected no military installations." His tactical officer was frantically working at his console. "Sir, I'm reading massive energy signatures throughout the system. There are hidden bases everywhere. Our initial scans completely missed them." On the Ghost of Yorktown, Commander Beth was already moving to her next target. Her ship's adaptive camouflage made it appear as empty space, allowing her to strike again and again without being caught. "Target their communications ship," she told her crew. "Cut off their ability to coordinate." The alien communications vessel was destroyed before it could send a warning to the rest of the Galactic Council. The fleet was now completely isolated, fighting an enemy they couldn't see against tactics they didn't understand. Captain Steve Parker watched the battle unfold on his tactical displays. Human forces were outnumbered 10-1, but they were winning. The key was that they weren't fighting fair. "Activate the gravity mines around Jupiter," Steve ordered. "Drive the remaining ships toward the sun." Hidden devices throughout the solar system created artificial gravity fields that pushed and pulled the alien ships like leaves in a windstorm. The aliens' advanced technology meant nothing when they couldn't control where their ships were going. On Earth, the alien landing craft found themselves under attack from weapons that shouldn't exist. Anti-gravity missiles rose from hidden silos, while orbital defense platforms that had been disguised as communication satellites revealed their true purpose. Admiral Korvex tried to rally his remaining ships, but it was hopeless. Half his fleet was already destroyed or disabled. The rest were scattered throughout the system, unable to communicate with each other. "Retreat!" he finally ordered. "All ships retreat to Council space immediately." But even retreating wasn't easy. Human gravity weapons made it difficult for the alien ships to achieve the speed needed for faster-than-light travel. Some ships were trapped in artificial gravity wells. Others found their navigation systems jammed by human electronic warfare. Of the 50 ships that had arrived to occupy Earth, only 18 managed to escape. The rest were destroyed, captured, or left drifting powerless in space. Commander Beth Turner's ship appeared one final time next to Admiral Korvex's damaged flagship. She opened a communication channel. "Tell your council," Beth said, her voice calm and cold, "that Earth is not interested in their protection. If they want to try again, they're welcome to come back. We'll be waiting. The alien admiral stared at the human woman on his screen. In all his years of conquest, no species had ever spoken to him like that. As his ship limped away from Earth, Corvex realized something that chilled him to his core. The humans had been planning this. They had known the Council was coming and had prepared accordingly. This wasn't desperate resistance. It was a carefully planned ambush. Back on Earth, Admiral Lisa Carter allowed herself a small smile as she watched the surviving alien ships flee toward deep space. Phase 1 complete, she announced to the command center. Now we prepare for Phase 2. President Alex Morgan looked at her with concern. Phase 2? They'll be back, Lisa replied. And next time they'll bring their entire military. We've just declared war on the most powerful force in the galaxy. The first battle was over, and humanity had won. But everyone knew this was just the beginning. High Counselor Vexithara stood before the emergency assembly of the Galactic Council, her pale blue skin glowing brighter than usual with anger. The massive chamber held representatives from 12 different species, and for the first time in centuries, they all looked worried. The humans destroyed 60% of our fleet, Vexithara announced, her musical voice carrying a sharp edge. This cannot be allowed to stand. No species has ever dared to attack the Council directly. The Korthak representative, General Thaxmore, slammed his metal fist on his desk. I told you these humans were dangerous. My analysis of their military... History showed they never surrender when cornered. Silence, Vexithara commanded. What's done is done. Now we must respond with overwhelming force. Deploy the full battle fleets of all member species. This rebellion ends now. Across the galaxy, massive war fleets began mobilizing. Ships that had been used only for policing primitive worlds were joined by vessels designed for real warfare. The Council was preparing for the first full-scale war in their recorded history, but the humans had not been idle during the 3 months since their first victory. Agent Carl White sat in a tavern on the planet Kepler 442b, listening to the local. Rebels plan their uprising. Carl looked human enough to blend in with the native species if you didn't look too closely. His mission had brought him deep into Council space, far from Earth. The Council garrison only has 200 soldiers, whispered Vectar, a local whose people had been pacified 40 years earlier. If we strike at the right moment, we can take the communications center. Carl nodded and took a drink of the local alcohol, which tasted terrible but helped maintain his cover. What about weapons? We have improvised explosives and some captured Council equipment, Vectar replied. But it's not much against their technology. Carl smiled and opened his travel bag. Inside were devices that looked like simple tools, but were actually advanced human weapons designed to look harmless. These might help. Similar conversations were happening on dozens of worlds throughout Council space. Human agents had been infiltrating the galaxy for months, making contact with oppressed species and teaching them how to fight back. On Earth, Admiral Lisa Carter stood in the war room looking at a massive holographic display of the galaxy. Red. Symbols showed the approaching Council fleets, over 3,000 ships from 12 different species, all converging on humanity's solar system. They're bringing everything they have, reported Colonel Danny Wright. Star Destroyers planet. Crackers, reality manipulation weapons? This isn't a police action anymore. They want to erase us completely. President Alex Morgan joined them at the display. Can we win against those numbers? Not in a straight fight, Lisa admitted. But we're not planning to fight straight. Captain Julia Evans was aboard humanity's newest and most experimental warship, the Human Defiance. Unlike Earth's other vessels, this ship had been built using technology that was still being invented. Every system could adapt and evolve during combat. "All systems showing green," reported her science officer, Dr. Ben Clark. "The quantum evolution matrix is online. We're ready to test our new capabilities." Julia nodded grimly. The Human Defiance was designed to learn from every attack against it and every shot it fired. The longer a battle went on, the more dangerous the ship would become. The question was whether they would survive long enough for the adaptation to make a difference. Meanwhile, Commander Sam Mitchell was leading a very different kind of mission. His team of 20 specialists had infiltrated a Council supply depot 3 star systems away from Earth. Their job wasn't to fight the enemy fleet directly, but to make sure it couldn't maintain itself in a long campaign. "Charges are set," whispered Lieutenant Dave Ross over the communicator. "When these fuel depots explode, the Council fleet will have to return home within a week or run out of power." "Good," Sam replied. "Remember, we're not trying to be heroes. Plant the explosives and get out." This was the kind of warfare humans excelled at, hitting the enemy where they were weak, disrupting their supply lines, and making their superior technology work against them. Back on Earth, the planet itself had become a weapon. Dr. Helen Brooks stood in the control center for Project Earth Shield, monitoring the massive gravitational manipulation devices that had been built into the planet's core. "Gravity field generators are online," she reported to Admiral Carter. "We can create localized gravity wells anywhere within 10 million kilometers of Earth. Any enemy ship that gets too close will be crushed." But Earth's defenses went far beyond gravity weapons. The moon had been converted into a massive fortress, with railgun batteries that could fire across the entire solar system. Hidden asteroid bases contained weapons that existed in quantum superposition. They could attack from multiple dimensions simultaneously. The first Council ships arrived at the edge of the solar system 2 weeks after the emergency assembly. Admiral Zefcole of the Crystalline Hegemony commanded the advance fleet, expecting to find a primitive world defended by crude weapons. Instead, his sensors detected energy signatures unlike anything in Council databases. The entire solar system seemed to be weaponized in ways that shouldn't be possible. "What are those readings?" Zefcole asked his science officer. "Unknown, sir. The gravitational fields around this system are completely artificial. It's as if the humans have turned their star into a weapon." Zefcole was beginning to understand why Admiral Corvex had been defeated so easily. The humans weren't fighting with the technology level the Council expected. Somehow, they had advanced their capabilities far beyond what should be possible for such a young species. The battle began when human forces opened fire from positions throughout the solar system. But this time, the Council was ready for surprise attacks. Their ships had been equipped with better sensors and stronger shields. The fighting was brutal and chaotic. Council ships used weapons that could tear holes in space itself, while human forces responded with technology that adapted to every attack. Each time the aliens found a way to damage human ships, those ships learned how to resist that specific type of damage. Captain Julia Evans found herself in the middle of the largest space battle in human history. The Human Defiance was surrounded by enemy vessels taking damage from weapons that rewrote the laws of physics. "Hull breach on Deck 7, reported her damage control officer. "But the adaptive armor is already learning to resist their particle beams." "Return fire," Julia ordered. "Target their command ship." The human Defiance fired quantum torpedoes that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The Council ships tried to block them, but the weapons adapted to each defensive measure faster than the aliens could respond. As the battle continued, something unprecedented began to happen. Human technology was evolving in real time, becoming more effective with each exchange of fire. What had started as inferior Earth weapons were now matching and sometimes surpassing Council technology. But the real surprise came when the uprising began. On Kepler 442b, Vector and his rebels struck the Council garrison using weapons provided by Agent Carl White. Similar attacks occurred on dozens of worlds throughout Council space. Species that had been enslaved for decades suddenly remembered what freedom felt like. "Sir," Admiral Zefkol's communications officer reported, "we're receiving distress calls from garrison forces throughout the sector. Multiple worlds are in rebellion." Zefkol felt a chill of fear. The humans hadn't just prepared to defend themselves. They had organized a galaxy-wide revolution. The battle reached its climax near Jupiter, where the largest concentration of Council ships encountered humanity's most powerful defenses. Captain Steve Parker's new Sparta station had been rebuilt and enlarged, now serving as the command center for a network of hidden fortresses throughout the asteroid belt. "All stations, concentrate fire on the Council flagship," Steve ordered. "Everything we have." The combined firepower of 20 hidden bases struck the massive alien command ship simultaneously. The Council vessel's shields held for a moment, then collapsed under the assault. The explosion was so bright it could be seen from Earth. As news of the flagship's destruction spread through the Council fleet, something happened that had never occurred in their military history. Ships began retreating without orders. Entire squadrons abandoned the battle and fled toward home space. But they found no safety there. The rebellions that human agents had sparked were spreading faster than the Council could respond. Worlds that had been peaceful for centuries were now in open revolt, using weapons and tactics taught by human infiltrators. Admiral Lisa Carter watched the enemy fleet break apart and retreat. But she knew this victory would come at a terrible cost. The Council would not accept defeat. They would return with weapons designed to destroy entire star systems. "Send a message to all human colonies," she ordered. "Prepare for total war. The Council will try to exterminate us now." President Alex Morgan looked at the tactical display showing the retreating alien forces. "How many ships did we lose?" 40% of our fleet is destroyed or disabled," Colonel Danny reported. "But their losses were much worse, and the rebellions in Council space are growing." "Then we've bought ourselves time," Alex said. "The question is, what do we do with it?" 6 months had passed since the second battle, and the galaxy was burning. Rebellions sparked by human agents had spread to over 200 worlds. The Galactic Council's 1,000-year peace was crumbling as species after species declared their independence. High Counselor Vexathera stood in the ruins of what had once been the Council's greatest military base. Around her, the wreckage of ships and buildings told the story of the galaxy's new reality. The rebels had attacked with weapons that shouldn't exist, tactics that made no sense, and a determination that terrified the Council members. "Report," she commanded her aide, a nervous creature whose translator made his voice sound like whispers. 17 more systems have declared independence this week," the aide replied. "The hegemony has lost contact with half their colonies. The Korthak Empire is fighting rebellions on their core worlds. Even the peaceful species are starting to resist our protection." Vexathara's pale blue skin glowed darker with anger. "This is all because of the humans. They've infected the galaxy with their chaotic thinking. High Counselor, the aide said carefully, perhaps we should consider negotiating with them. Never, Vexthera snapped. The Council does not negotiate with criminals and terrorists. We will restore order, no matter the cost. But deep in her mind, Vexthera was beginning to doubt. The humans had done something the Council thought impossible. They had shown the galaxy that the Council could be defeated. Meanwhile, Commander Jake Harrison was leading a combined fleet of human ships and rebel vessels toward the Council's capital world. 6 months of warfare had changed him. The diplomatic officer who had first met the aliens was gone, replaced by a hardened warrior who understood that sometimes peace could only be won through victory. "All ships report ready," announced Captain Ryan Bell from his position at the communications station. Ryan now commanded his own vessel, the Earth's Vengeance, and had become one of humanity's most successful ship captains. Jake looked at the tactical display showing their fleet. Humans fought alongside dozens of different alien species, all united by their desire for freedom from Council rule. It was exactly the kind of chaotic alliance that the Council's ordered minds couldn't understand. "Remember," Jake announced over the fleet communication system, "we're not here to conquer. We're here to liberate. Every species in this galaxy has the right to choose their own destiny." The capital world of the Galactic Council was surrounded by the largest concentration of defensive weapons in known space. Massive space stations protected by reality-warping shields created an impenetrable barrier around the planet. At least that's what the Council believed. Admiral Lisa Carter was aboard her flagship, monitoring the approach to the capital. Earth's fleet had grown dramatically during the 6 months of war, not through building new ships, but through captured Council vessels that had been converted using human technology. "All stealth units report in position," she announced to her staff. The key to the attack was humanity's mastery of deception. While the main fleet approached openly, dozens of cloaked ships had already infiltrated the capital's defenses. Phase 1 begins in 30 seconds, reported Colonel Danny Wright from his command ship. Danny now led a unit of former Council soldiers who had switched sides after learning the truth about their government's oppression. The battle for the Council capital began not with explosions, but with silence. Throughout the defensive network, hidden human viruses activated in Council computer systems. The aliens had never encountered adaptive software that learned and evolved while it worked. Captain Julia Evans watched from the bridge of the human defiance as the enemy's mighty shields began flickering and failing. Her ship's technology had evolved far beyond its original design, incorporating improvements learned from every battle. "Enemy defenses are down to 60%, reported her tactical officer. "The virus is working faster than we predicted." "All ships, begin the assault," Julia ordered. The combined rebel fleet struck the Council defenses with overwhelming force. But this wasn't the chaotic human tactics the aliens expected. This was coordinated, professional warfare that used the best elements of strategy from dozens of different species. Commander Beth Turner led a squadron of stealth ships directly toward the Council chambers. Her mission was specific: capture the Council leadership alive if possible, but prevent them from escaping at all costs. "Remember," she told her pilots, "the galaxy is watching this battle. How we win today will determine what kind of future we're building." On the planet's surface, the Council members were meeting in emergency session. For the first time in their history, they were discussing the possibility of actual defeat. "The rebels have broken through our outer defenses," reported General Thaxmore of the Korthak Empire. Their technology adapts faster than we can counter it. How is this possible? Demanded another council member. They're primitives. They achieved spaceflight only decades ago. Vexathera stood at the center of the chamber watching displays that showed the battle raging above their world. Because we underestimated them. We thought their capacity for war made them weak. Instead, it made them strong in ways we never imagined. The chamber's massive doors suddenly opened, and humans in combat armor walked in. Leading them was Commander Jake Harrison, no longer the diplomatic officer who had first met the aliens, but a warrior who had fought across the galaxy for freedom. High Counselor Vexathara, Jake said formally, I'm here to accept your surrender. The alien leader's silver eyes blazed with anger. The Council does not surrender to criminals. Then you surrender to liberators, Jake replied calmly. Your 1,000-year rule is over. Every species in this galaxy now has the choice to determine their own future. Behind Jake, representatives from dozens of formerly enslaved species entered the chamber. They were no longer the broken, subjugated people the Council remembered. They stood tall and proud, free beings who had chosen to fight for their independence. Vexathara looked around at the faces surrounding her. You don't understand what you've done. Without the Council's guidance, the galaxy will fall into chaos. There will be wars, conflicts, suffering. Maybe, Jake admitted. Freedom is messy. It's dangerous. People make mistakes when they're allowed to choose for themselves, but it's still better than the alternative. Agent Carl White stepped forward. He had spent months in council space, helping organize the rebellions that had made this moment possible. I've seen what your protection really means. Species forced to give up their culture, their technology, their right to choose. That's not peace. That's slavery with a pretty name. The galaxy needs order, Vexathara insisted. The galaxy needs freedom, replied Ambassador Maria Santos, who had entered the chamber behind the others. Order imposed by force isn't order at all. It's just fear dressed up as law. Outside the chamber, the battle was ending. The Council's military forces were surrendering or fleeing throughout the galaxy. Without central coordination, their ability to maintain control over hundreds of worlds simply collapsed. Admiral Lisa Carter's voice came through Jake's communicator. Commander, we're receiving surrender broadcasts from Council fleets throughout the sector. It's over. Jake looked at High Counselor Vexathera. You have a choice now. You can work with us to build something better, or you can be remembered as the leaders who chose oppression over freedom. For a long moment, the chamber was silent. Then, slowly, Vexathara's pale blue skin dimmed to a softer glow. What are you proposing? A new galactic assembly, Maria Santos explained. Every species gets representation. Every world gets to choose its own government. No more imposed peace, no more forced protection, just voluntary cooperation between equals. And if some species choose to make war, Vexathera asked, then they face the consequences of their choices, Jake replied. But at least they'll be their choices to make. 6 months later, Ambassador Maria Santos stood before the first meeting of the Galactic Assembly. The chamber was filled with representatives from over 300 species, many of whom were attending their first free government meeting in centuries. The old galaxy is dead, Maria announced to the Assembly. The Galactic Council's rule by force has ended. What we build now will be built by choice, not coercion. In the audience, Admiral Lisa Carter watched with satisfaction. Earth's military had been reduced to a defensive force, but human ideas about freedom and self-determination were spreading faster than any weapon could travel. Commander Jake Harrison, now serving as Earth's chief diplomatic representative, rose to address the assembly. The humans of Earth want you to know that we don't seek to rule anyone. We fought for the right of every species to choose their own path. That right now belongs to all of us. High Counselor Vexathara, now representing what remained of the old council species in the new assembly, stood to respond. The galaxy will be more dangerous now. There will be conflicts, wars, suffering that the council's protection prevented. Yes, Jake admitted, freedom is dangerous, but it's also the only way to build something truly worth protecting. The assembly erupted in discussion as hundreds of species began the difficult work of building a new galactic civilization. It would be messy, chaotic, and sometimes violent. But it would be theirs. 2 years had passed since the fall of the Galactic Council, and the galaxy was learning what freedom really meant. It was messy, complicated, and sometimes violent, but it was also beautiful in ways the old order had never allowed. Captain Ryan. Bell stood on the bridge of his ship, the Earth's Vengeance, as it approached a planet called Nova Terra. The world had been a peaceful council colony for 300 years. Now it was at war with itself as different groups fought over how to build their new government. "Sir, we're getting distress signals from both sides of the conflict," reported his communications officer, Lieutenant Sam Davis. "The planetary government is asking for help against rebels. The rebels are asking for help against the government." Ryan sighed. This was the 4th civil war they'd encountered this month. Freedom, it turned out, was much harder to manage than slavery had been. "Open a channel to both sides," Ryan ordered. "Let's see if we can talk some sense into them." The main screen split to show 2 very different alien leaders. On the left was Governor Kexwin, an elderly creature with gray skin and tired eyes. On the right was Commander Yiltan, younger and burning with revolutionary fervor. "Captain Bell," Governor Kexwin said wearily, "thank goodness you're here. These rebels are destroying everything we've built. They want to tear down our entire civilization." "We want to tear down your oppression," Commander Yiltan shot back. "For 3 centuries your family has ruled this world because the Council appointed you. Now that the Council is gone, the people deserve to choose their own leaders." Ryan had heard this argument dozens of times on dozens of worlds. The collapse of Council authority had created power vacuums everywhere, and different groups were fighting to fill them. "Both of you, listen carefully," Ryan said. "Earth's policy is simple. We won't choose sides in civil wars, but we will help negotiate peaceful solutions. You can keep fighting and destroy your world, or you can find a way to share power." The wheel. "Humans speak of sharing power," Governor Kexwin said bitterly, "but on their own world, they still have wars and conflicts. How can they teach us peace?" Ryan smiled slightly. "We can't. That's the point. Peace isn't something that can be imposed from outside. It has to be chosen from within." Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Lisa Carter was dealing with a very different kind of problem. She stood in the diplomatic reception hall of the United Nations building, greeting a delegation of Korthak warriors who had come to Earth seeking military assistance. General Vokmar was a massive creature covered in metal armor, representing what remained of the Korthak Empire after their government had collapsed following the Council's defeat. His deep voice rumbled as he spoke. "Admiral Carter, my people are dying. Without the Council's protection, we face invasions from 12 different species who want revenge for centuries of oppression. Lisa nodded sympathetically. The Korthak had been the Council's primary military force, and now they were paying the price for their role in galactic oppression. "What kind of help are you looking for?" "Military advisors," Vakmar replied. "Weapons. Alliance. The humans proved they could defeat superior numbers through superior tactics. We need to learn these skills." President Alex Morgan joined the conversation. "We're willing to provide defensive assistance, but we won't help you reconquer your former territories." "We don't want to reconquer," Vakmar said, surprising them both. "We want to survive, perhaps even to make amends for our past actions." This was exactly the kind of moral complexity that freedom brought with it. The Korthak had been oppressors, but they were also living beings who deserved the chance to change. Across the galaxy, similar dramas were playing out on thousands of worlds. Commander Jake Harrison found himself on a planet where 3 different species were fighting over mining rights that had been allocated by the old council. Each group claimed the legal right to the resources. "The law says the deposits belong to whoever was here first," argued Representative Zilkova of the crystalline beings who had arrived 50 years ago. "The law says they belong to whoever can extract them most efficiently," countered Engineer. "Bolthex of the mechanical species who had better mining technology? The law says they belong to the native population," declared Chief Morgex of the planet's original inhabitants, who had been relocated by the Council decades earlier. Jake looked at the 3 alien leaders and realized they were all right according to different legal systems. The Council had created a maze of contradictory laws and regulations that no one could properly sort out now that the central authority was gone. "Here's what we're going to do," Jake announced. "You're going to form a joint mining consortium. Each group gets a share based on a combination of historical claims, technical capability, and current population. And if anyone tries to use force to settle this, Earth will embargo your entire system." It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was a working solution. That seemed to be the best they could hope for in the new galaxy. Dr. Helen Brooks was facing her own challenges as head of the new Galactic Technology Sharing Initiative. The old council had hoarded advanced technology, giving different species only what they thought each could handle safely. Now, with that control gone, dangerous knowledge was spreading rapidly. "We have a problem," reported Engineer Tony Kim during their weekly briefing. "The Veltar Federation just acquired antimatter weapons technology. They're threatening to use it against the Morden Republic over a trade dispute." Helen rubbed her temples. "How did they get antimatter tech?" "Captured from a council weapons depot," Tony replied. "The same depot that 3 other species are fighting over right now." This was the dark side of galactic freedom. Without the Council's strict technology controls, weapons that could destroy entire star systems were falling into the hands of species who weren't prepared to use them responsibly. "Send a diplomatic team," Helen decided. "Offer them better trade agreements in exchange for disarmament, and prepare our containment protocols in case they refuse." Agent Carl White was working on a different kind of problem. He had been investigating reports of slavery in the Outer Rim territories where some species were trying to rebuild the old council system on a smaller scale. "The situation is worse than we thought," he reported to Admiral Carter during a secure communication. "The Threx Syndicate has enslaved the entire Pelmon species. They're using them as forced labor in their mining operations." "How many ships do they have?" Lisa asked. 50 warships, plus orbital defense platforms," Carl replied. "But their technology is outdated council equipment. A small human force could probably handle them." Lisa was quiet for a moment. This was exactly the kind of intervention they had sworn not to make. Earth had promised to respect other species' right to choose their own governments, even if those choices were bad. The Pelmon didn't choose slavery, she finally said. Send a fleet. We'll give the Threx one chance to release their slaves voluntarily. The rescue mission was led by Commander Beth Turner aboard her upgraded ship, the Ghost of Yorktown. The Sonj stealth vessel had been refitted with the latest human technology, making it nearly invisible to most sensors. Enemy fleet detected, reported her tactical officer as they approached the Threx system. They're demanding we leave immediately or face the consequences. Beth smiled coldly. Tell them the consequences are what happens when you enslave innocent people. All ships, attack. The battle was over in less than an hour. Threx ships that had been formidable in the Council era were no match for evolved human technology. The Pelmon were liberated, and the Threx leadership was arrested for crimes against sentient beings. But even these victories came with costs. The galactic economy was struggling as old trade networks collapsed. Species that had been interdependent for centuries suddenly found themselves cut off from vital resources and markets. Ambassador Maria Santos was working with economists from a dozen different worlds to try to rebuild galactic commerce on a voluntary basis. It was slow, difficult, work that required constant negotiation and compromise. The Zephyrian Collective wants exclusive rights to quantum crystal trade, she explained to President Morgan during a video conference. But the Helix Federation says that violates their traditional territory claims. What do you recommend? Alex asked. Shared mining rights with profit distribution based on planetary contribution, Maria replied. It's not perfect, but it keeps everyone from going to war over crystals. As the second anniversary of the Council's fall approached, humanity found itself in an unexpected position. They had become the galaxy's unofficial peacekeepers, not through conquest, but through respect. Other species came to Earth for help because humans had proven they could win wars without trying to rule the defeated. Admiral Lisa Carter stood in her office, looking out at the ships from dozens of different species docked at Earth's orbital stations. They were here for trade, diplomacy, and sometimes just to see the world that had changed everything. Do you ever wonder if we did the right thing? Asked General Paul Adams, who had come to Earth for a strategic planning meeting. Every day, Lisa replied honestly. The galaxy is more dangerous now. There are more wars, more conflicts, more suffering in some ways, but also more hope, Paul pointed out. More freedom, more chance for real peace instead of imposed quiet. 5 years after the Council's fall, Captain Julia Evans received a distress call that would change everything. She was aboard the Human Defiance, now serving as flagship for the Galactic Emergency Response Fleet, when the message came through. Captain, we're getting a signal from the edge of the galaxy, reported Lieutenant Mark Johnson, her new communications officer. It's strange. The transmission is using technology we've never seen before. Julia frowned. In 5 years of exploring the post-Council galaxy, humans had encountered dozens of new species and technologies. What could be so different about this one? Put it on screen, she ordered. The holographic display showed an alien unlike any they had met before. It was tall and elegant, with silver skin that reflected light like metal and eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. When it spoke, its voice carried an authority that reminded Julia of the old council leaders. I am Ambassador Nexithara of the Eternal Dominion, the being announced. We have been watching the chaos you have brought to this galaxy. The time has come to restore proper order. Julia felt a chill run down her spine. This is Captain Julia. Evans of the Earth vessel Human Defiance. What do you mean by restore order? Your species destroyed the Galactic Council and plunged this galaxy into chaos, Nexathara replied coldly. Wars rage on hundreds of worlds. Trade has collapsed. Millions suffer without proper governance. The Eternal Dominion will not allow this to continue. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Julia staring at an empty screen. She immediately contacted Earth Command to report the encounter. Admiral Lisa Carter was in a meeting with representatives from 30 different worlds when Julia's urgent message arrived. The diplomatic gathering was discussing the formation of a new mutual defense treaty, something that had become necessary as conflicts spread throughout the galaxy. Admiral, came Julia's voice over the communicator, we need to talk. We just made contact with something calling itself the Eternal Dominion. They're not happy about what's happened to the galaxy. Lisa excused herself from the meeting and took the call in private. As Julia described the encounter, Lisa felt a familiar weight settling on her shoulders. They had defeated one galactic empire only to face another. How many ships are we talking about? Lisa asked. Unknown, Julia replied. But their technology is definitely more advanced than anything the Council had. The transmission came from outside our galaxy's edge, which means they have faster-than-light communication systems we can't even detect. President Alex Morgan called an emergency meeting of Earth's leadership within hours. The Situation Room, beneath the Pentagon, was once again filled with military officers, scientists, and diplomats trying to plan for an unknown threat. What do we know about this Eternal Dominion? Alex asked. Dr. Helen Brooks had been analyzing the transmission data. Based on their technology signatures, they're at least 1,000 years more advanced than the Council was. Their ship designs suggest a civilization that has been spacefaring for millions of years. General Paul Adams leaned forward. Are we talking about invasion? We don't know, Lisa admitted. But their message suggested they see the current galaxy as broken and in need of fixing. That doesn't sound like they plan to leave us alone. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, other species were receiving similar messages. The Eternal Dominion was making contact with every major civilization, delivering the same warning about chaos and the need for order. High Counselor Vex Thera, now serving as a representative in the new Galactic Assembly, received the Dominion's message while attending a session on trade regulation disputes. The irony was not lost on her that they were debating the same kinds of problems the old Council used to solve through simple decree. They speak like we used to, she told Ambassador Maria Santos after the session, with absolute certainty that they know what's best for everyone else. Maria nodded grimly. The difference is, we know how powerful these beings might be. The Council was advanced compared to most species, but even we never claimed to rule multiple galaxies. Agent Carl White was on a deep space reconnaissance mission when his ship detected massive energy signatures moving through hyperspace. Whatever the Eternal Dominion was bringing, it was big enough to register on sensors from light years away. Command, this is Agent White, he reported over the long-range communicator. I'm reading fleet movements that make the old Council armadas look like fishing boats. We're talking about thousands of ships, each one larger than anything I've ever seen. The response came from Colonel Danny Wright, now serving as Earth's intelligence coordinator. How long until they reach inhabited space? At their current speed. Maybe 6 months, Carl replied. But Danny, there's something else. I'm picking up transmissions between their ships. They're not just planning to conquer us. They're planning to completely rebuild galactic civilization according to their own design. On Earth, the revelation sparked urgent preparations, but this time, humanity wasn't preparing alone. The 5 years since the Council's fall had created bonds between species that had never existed under the old regime. Captain Ryan Bell found himself commanding a mixed fleet of human, Korthak, and Zephyrian ships as they established early warning stations throughout the galaxy's edge. Former enemies were now working together to face a common threat. "It's strange," commented Commander Vakmar, the Korthak officer who served as Ryan's second-in-command. 5 years ago, we would have been trying to kill each other. Now we're preparing to die together for freedom. That's what real alliance looks like," Ryan replied. "Not forced cooperation, but chosen partnership." The first direct contact with Dominion forces came when Commander Beth Turner's stealth reconnaissance ship encountered a Dominion patrol near the galaxy's rim. What she found was both impressive and terrifying. "Command, the Dominion ships are unlike anything we've encountered," she reported. "They're not just technologically advanced, they're works of art, perfect geometric shapes that seem to bend space around them. And the energy readings? We're looking at weapons that could crack planets." "Any sign of weakness?" asked Admiral Carter. "That's the strange part," Beth replied. "Their technology is incredibly advanced, but it's also incredibly old. These designs haven't changed in thousands of years. They're using the same ships, the same tactics, the same everything that they've probably used for millennia." This observation sparked hope in the human leadership. Advanced didn't always mean adaptable, and humanity's greatest strength had always been their ability to change and evolve. Dr. Helen Brooks began working on countermeasures based on this insight. If their technology hasn't evolved in thousands of years, it means they've gotten comfortable with always being the strongest force they encounter. They might not know how to adapt when faced with something truly unexpected. The Eternal Dominions. Fleet entered the galaxy 3 months ahead of schedule, emerging from hyperspace in a formation that stretched across several star systems. Their ships were massive crystalline structures that seemed to be grown rather than built, pulsing with energy that made space itself ripple around them. Ambassador Nexathara's message to the galaxy was broadcast simultaneously to every inhabited world. "People of this chaotic realm, your time of lawlessness has ended. The Eternal Dominion brings order, peace, and prosperity to all who accept our guidance. Those who resist will be removed for the greater good." Unlike the Galactic Council's ultimatum 5 years earlier, this message offered no choice and no negotiation period. The Dominion fleet began moving toward inhabited systems immediately, expecting immediate surrender. They were about to learn that the galaxy had changed significantly since the Council's fall. The first resistance came not from human forces, but from a coalition of former Council species led by the reformed Korthak military. General Vakmar commanded a fleet of mixed ships, using tactics learned from human advisors. The battle was brief, but revealing. Dominion weapons were incredibly powerful, capable of destroying entire fleets with single shots. But their tactics were predictable, following patterns that hadn't changed in ages. When Vakmar's forces used human-inspired chaos tactics, sudden retreats, false surrenders, and coordinated strikes from unexpected angles, the Dominion forces struggled to adapt. "They fight like the Council used to," Vakmar reported to Admiral Carter after the engagement. "Overwhelming force applied in predictable patterns. They expect their enemies to fight back with honor and logic." Then we'll give them something they don't expect, Lisa replied. Chaos, adaptation, and pure human stubbornness. Captain Julia Evans was already preparing for the larger conflict ahead. The human Defiance had been upgraded again, this time with technology learned from 5 years of galactic cooperation. The ship now incorporated improvements from dozens of different species, making it a truly galactic vessel rather than just a human one. All departments report ready, announced Lieutenant Johnson. Quantum evolution systems online, adaptive shielding at maximum, and our new multi-species crew is prepared for combat. Julia looked around her bridge at officers from 7 different species, all working together with a coordination that would have been impossible under Council rule. Then let's show the Eternal Dominion what a free galaxy can accomplish when it works together. The war for galactic freedom was about to begin again, but this time, humanity wouldn't be